Hey everyone, it's Colin. How's it going? It seems like cars and technology have been different topics for a very long time, but in recent years they've been coming together faster than ever before. So with that in mind, let's take a walk around the auto show. You know, for as much as people hate the Prius, especially like people who really like cars, I gotta give it credit. This car has really kind of kick-started the whole hybrid vehicle thing, right? No, it's not fast. No, it's not amazing in terms of performance, but really, you just gotta give it credit. Some people just want appliances to drive, and that's okay, really. It's fine. Not everyone is that big into driving cars. But it's not like they're, you know, terrible cars by any means. If you just want something fun to drive, you know, you need to look elsewhere. But if you just need to get to work, well, I think you could do far worse. So I'm inside a different Prius, slightly bigger model, I guess. The white on black with the steering wheel, I'm honest, is kind of cool, but I just don't dig like this weird space age alien interior. I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to interiors on cars. Why is the speedometer not in front of me? You know what I mean? I don't know. Lots and lots of glossy black in this car though. Holy crap. You are going to see every single fingerprint. So I guess what Toyota did when they killed off the Scion brand is now they're just calling everything a Yaris. So this is the Yaris IA. Don't be fooled into thinking this is a Toyota. It's actually a Mazda 2 that they simply rebadged. And unfortunately Toyota kind of beat the front end with the ugly stick a little bit. But if you're in for a subcompact, you could do far worse than one of these, I think. Alright, RAV4. My mom just bought a RAV4. I've never driven one, so I have no idea if it's any good. And of course, the one she bought didn't have all the Minnesota Wild stuff all over it. In case you didn't guess, I'm at the Minneapolis Auto Show, because that's where I live. Surprisingly busy today because of course I had to come on the first Saturday that it's open, but that's just the way the scheduling worked out. I understand they've got a hybrid version of these cars now. Probably not a bad deal if you need the gas mileage. Something I just noticed on the RAV4, why does this hatchback not go far enough up? Like, I could walk, I'm like, the camera's head height right now, and I would whack my head straight into it. Seems a little bit off if you ask me. That should go up higher. So I guess Honda is like pre-ricering the Civic now. This one's in like a primer gray kind of color, although what's weird is there's a little bit of metallic to it. It's really tough to tell. But interesting color for sure. Look at this ridiculous green. I love it. I love this green. This is killer. It's way more neon than the camera makes out. This is nuts. This color needs to be available in like every car, I swear. It's so loud. This neon green is the new like hot yellow, you know what I mean? So I'm in that super green two-door Civic. I'm really surprised. People could actually fit in the back seat. Usually putting people in the back seat of a two-door is like, what's the point? But there's a surprising amount of room back there, it seems. All right, the Minis. There's a few different models of these now. The only bummer is that because they've kind of got that whole tie-up with BMW, they're like engineered like German cars, which is good, but it's bad in that they are an absolute mongrel to work on. I helped a friend do some work on his a few years back, and it was ridiculous compared to working on any other car. He ended up with an extended warranty on his, which more than paid for itself. So maybe that is true of any German car, but with these especially, you might really want to consider buying that extended warranty if you're interested in one. I will admit though, I do like some of the livery that they're doing, especially these classic stripes. Actually, this orange and white is really speaking to me. I know British Racing Green is really kind of the traditional color, but there's something about this combination that I really dig. Bad boys, what you gonna do? I'm gonna be honest, I'm continually surprised that Mitsubishi continues to sell cars in the United States. Not that they're bad vehicles by any means, but I just don't see very many of them out on the road, and I kind of can't help but wonder if they're not eventually just going to pull a Suzuki and leave the market entirely. So Fiat's like taking a page out of the whole Mini Cooper playbook, and now they've got a couple of different models. They're certainly cute looking cars, but unfortunately I've read some unflattering reports about their quality and reliability, so maybe you want to do some research on your own if this sort of thing strikes you. Mazda 3. I actually owned one of these. Granted, it was the first gen version. You get a lot of car for your money with one of these, I can tell you that much. Mazda really seems to have it together when it comes to trying to give you bang for the buck, at least as far as Japanese cars go. I used to be big into the sedans, but I've really kind of fallen for hatchbacks now. So that's the way I would definitely go if I were to buy another one of these. They still make a lot of these cars in Japan, which is kind of important to me. But, you know, maybe it doesn't really matter where cars are made anymore, because the quality on them is just so high across the board. Reliability just keeps getting better. But this color is definitely very striking as well. But yeah, if you're looking for a sedan or a smaller hatchback, definitely consider a Mazda 3. I'd recommend it. Thumbs up. Good car. I wish I could give you a better look at the Crosstrek here, but they only brought one to the auto show. And it's surprisingly popular. I haven't had a chance to sit in it because people just keep like waiting to get into it. It's kind of a crossover, but kind of not. Like, think of an Impreza that sits a bit higher, and that's pretty much what this car is. I've been seeing a lot of these driving around. Granted, you know, the whole all-wheel drive thing really helps its case, this being Minnesota, but for people who need utility and don't want to get stuck in snow, but don't want to commit to a full, you know, giant SUV, not a bad idea. I'm not the biggest fan of the exterior color, but I really like this interior. It's just simple and streamlined and straightforward. The gauges give you everything you need. They're right in the middle. There's no crazy, like, tons of buttons all over the place. It's simple and easy to understand. That said, paddle shifters, you really need paddle shifters in a vehicle like this? No, you don't. Don't know why they bothered. And I should make a note about the transmission that Subaru's been doing in its cars. If you don't get something with a manual, you end up with a CVT. I understand the technical reasons why going to a CVT makes sense, but the problem, at least as I understand in the Crosstrek and possibly other vehicles like it, is it's not geared high enough. So if you're doing like 70 miles an hour, you're screaming along at 3,000 RPM. That's not helping your gas mileage. So, you know, if they could have gone with a traditional transmission, gone with like a 6-speed auto, I think that probably would have done them a little better. But that said, overall, it's still an interesting vehicle. Another quick note about just interior vehicle design I should make. I don't like it when manufacturers do these kind of knobs. And the reason is you can't tell what position it's in without looking at it. If it's just a thing where it's like a paddle type of a turn, you can tell just by touching it where it's at, you know? So if like you need the fan to go from 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, you know, you don't have to look at it and see, well, where am I now, you know, to find the indicator. With those paddle types, you just grab it and you can tell immediately just by touching it what position it's in. I know these look nicer, but sometimes functionality is more important than looks. It is a pretty looking blue, I'll admit. Alright, brand new Impreza. Also a pretty nice interior, but like the fake carbon fiber on this, really. Still, again, like not too many buttons or nothing. I'm impressed. I know I've been sitting in a lot of Japanese vehicles here at the show, but I just find them a lot easier to drive, and the styling just makes more sense. The American automakers, they seem to think that, like, let's just put a ton of buttons on stuff and that'll make it look high-tech or whatever, right? I've sat in Fords that have had like dozens of buttons down the center stack. It makes no sense to me. Why are they doing that? That doesn't help anybody. Yes, it makes it look fancy or whatever, but when you're trying to drive the car and push these buttons, you're not doing anybody any favors. So simple design makes a lot of sense, and you know, I guess that's one reason why I'm attracted to Japanese vehicles, is they seem to get that. And I'm not saying that the American automakers can't get that, but it's just a trend that I think needs to really end. So this is kind of like my inner car nerd engineer whatever talking. I get the whole horizontally opposed boxer engine concept, but the one thing that I don't like, and you can't tell because they've got the cover over it, but most cars have a pretty short, simple timing belt or timing chain. This thing has a timing belt that goes all the way from here over to here and back. It's this giant rubber belt, and if that thing fails, your car is dead. That just kind of skews me out a little bit. I know it's not a big deal in the end, but you know, considering my current car has a nice timing chain in it that is said to be rated for like the life of the car, you pretty much never have to touch it, and that it takes a lot of labor and work to get in there. And I'm not talking about this belt, this is just the serpentine belt, but the timing belt is behind this cover. There's a lot of work to get in there and to replace that belt, and you have to do it at somewhere between like 80,000 and 100,000 miles, I guess. You know, that's one thing to consider with the Subarus, is there is some additional maintenance cost. Not just that, but also the fact that these are all-wheel drive, so there's a transfer case and a differential that needs fluid changes periodically, and unless you're really mechanically inclined, you know, that's just going to cost you money. That said, the oil filter, well, that's easy to change. It's right there. This thing has chrome for days. I don't think I've seen a vehicle with as much chrome on it since like cars from the 50s. Holy crap. So this is something a little different. Nissan Leaf. I actually see one of these about every day now on my commute, driving around and stuff. I'm surprised at just how relatively common they've become for being an all-electric vehicle. Clearly this is kind of the future and where things are going in terms of cars. Kind of, it's a little space age on the inside, but not as much as I would expect. You know, you would think that with the all-electric cars, like the entire thing would be this giant touch panel and lights and LEDs and blinky stuff and all that everywhere, but it doesn't look any different than, say, the Prius or, you know, anything else that we've looked at so far. It's a pretty kind of typical looking car. It's just you don't put any gasoline in it. I may take one of these for a spin someday. I've never driven an electric car. I will admit I'm actually very curious about it. I don't think I'm ready to only have electric vehicles. I think, we'll probably keep at least one gas vehicle until the whole charging infrastructure gets bigger, but it's compelling for if you just have a very kind of fixed commute every day to and from work. Where'd the engine go? Yeah, of course, it's electric motors, Nissan Leaf. Something I just realized though, so this thing's got a giant battery pack like under the seats and everything, way back under there, right, to drive this whole thing. Why is there what looks like a regular car battery in here? There's a battery, but there's a big battery. Why do they need that battery when there's a whole big one back there? Somebody explain that to me. More of the Leaf here. Zero emission, at least, it driving around, but maybe some emissions when you go to charge it up from what the power plant's doing. That's kind of an angle that not too many people talk about, is you got to think about where the energy is coming from. Only if you've got fully renewable energy that's going in to charge this thing can you really say it's zero emission. Otherwise, the emissions simply happen before you started driving around. That said, it's still way better than internal combustion, at least from an environmental standpoint, so any progress is good progress, I guess. Oh, Godzilla! I don't see very many of these. I think I've seen maybe only one or two GTRs out on the road in the last, I don't know how many years. At least of this modern variety, like the old school, like imported Skylines and stuff. No, you never see them here. But the new kind of modern GTRs, yeah, again, I think just maybe one or two. Granted, when I have seen them, they've been going flat out, and they are stupid fast. These are just kind of absolute monsters in terms of performance. 135. Granted, I think you kind of end up paying for it. $111,000 is what that sticker says. Yikes. Can someone help me figure out what brand of vehicle this is? I can't tell. So I'm in the so-called like electric car room, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little underwhelmed. Like, yeah, they've got like cool like hybrids and electric cars and stuff in here, but they don't have anything like really amazing like Tesla. I know we have a Tesla dealer here in the Minneapolis area, but I guess they're too cool to show up. So it's all just like, Ford and Chrysler and all that. A little bummed, but oh well. Overpriced auto show French fries. Here's what I mean about that whole like being able to just know, where things are just by touch, right? You can tell exactly what position it's in just by grabbing it, okay, well, I'm on 0, I need to go to 1, that's 1 notch. Oh, I know it's on cold, let's make it go to hot. Instead of having to look at the dials. This is the kind of smart design that I'm always looking for in a car. This is what they call a hot hatch. $26,000 Fiesta ST. Oh, dang. All right, so I need to talk for a second about American cars. I don't hate American cars, but you know what I was saying about why I like Japanese cars, and that the fit and finish, and that it's simple in design with the driver in mind. My first impression, having sat in this car, is of course the door handle, right? Because you grab the door handle to close the door. This door handle hurts my hand to grab it, because this plastic molding line right here, not on this side, but also on the back side, both sides, it's sharp. Like they didn't bother to file this down or smooth it or redesign this handle in such a way that it's actually a comfortable experience. And it like flexes, the two halves of this handle kind of squeeze together when you grab it, so it feels cheap. We just looked at the sticker. This car is like $26,000. And this is my first impression. A door handle that feels cheap and actually like cuts into your hand a little bit when you grab it. This is the kind of stuff that I don't like about American automakers. And I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm ranting. And if you like American automakers, if you like American cars, that's totally cool. That's just totally cool. I'm fine with that. I don't hate American cars. But why would I spend $26,000 on this car that cuts my freaking hand when I close the door when I can spend that same amount of money on a different brand that gets it and doesn't do that? You know, I mean, a car's a car. Yes, I'm an American. Yes, I was born in this country, and I probably should be supporting, you know, American car makers, but it's my money and I'm going to spend it how I want. Why would I want to spend money on this when I can spend money on a car that doesn't do that? So, sorry, rant over. I'm sure this car is fast as hell, and it's probably one of about 3 at the auto show that actually has a manual transmission in it. But still, you know, like, again, with kind of the crazy buttons all over. How am I supposed to figure out what all these do while I'm driving? I don't know. Sorry if I'm ranting, folks, but, you know, it doesn't take much thought to figure this kind of stuff out when you're designing a car, yet they go and do this kind of stuff anyway. If you ever need a break from, like, the craziness and the noise and everything at the auto show, just go find a luxury vehicle and sit in it. They're very quiet. And one thing to note, as at the auto show, the luxury vehicles, they always have the windows rolled up. The regular cars, like the less expensive ones, the windows are always rolled down because the luxury cars want to show off how quiet they are on the inside, but the regular cars, no, they're not that quiet on the inside, so they keep the windows down so you can't tell the difference. That said, this Lexus CT200 that I'm sitting in is actually pretty quiet, very nice. The only bummer with this car, and it is a hybrid, which I actually do kind of like, I have seen a number of them driving around. Sad to say, they're all driven by older folks. Not that that's a bad thing, but you would think it would resonate with kind of the younger set a little bit. You know, it's like, in some ways it's a step up from a Prius. So you think maybe younger people would want to upgrade to this if they get some money, but they don't. So it's all kind of older folks that buy this, which I don't understand, but whatever. It's still a pretty comfortable and nice car. One thing I need to give Lexus a lot of credit for is its paint work. They just do really, really good job with paint. It probably doesn't come across on camera, but this is kind of a silver champagne, kind of a hybrid color. It looks gorgeous here, even indoors. And if you ever find a Lexus with a white pearl coat finish, out in the sun, it looks amazing.
If it's only $10, then it should go.
Honda Fit, also another kind of cool little hatchback, subcompact, compact, whatever type of segment. I haven't seen too many of this generation on the road, but granted, they're also fairly new, so I'm sure I will. I've been seeing a ton of the older gen for sure, so probably worth looking at. I got bombed by a dude telling me to go over to luxury lane. I don't know. I'm not so big into luxury cars. I mean, I want one, but I can't afford one, and I would imagine that most of you can't either just because of their expense. So I'm focusing on more affordable vehicles this time around, if that makes sense. Sorry if you wanted to look at super expensive cars and I didn't show you any. I guess I'm just a little more practical in nature than that, like looking at the Honda Fit. Okay, so I'm in a Golf All-Track Volkswagen. This is kind of the new competition to that Subaru Crosstrek. It's a wagon, it sits up a little bit higher. You know, I want to like Volkswagens, but I've never really felt the value. I mean, I know there are a lot of real die-hard Volkswagen fans. And I'm not saying that German cars themselves are, you know, bad by any means. I would certainly consider a German car, but I've never really felt that you get a ton for your money with one of these. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong models, you know, maybe I'm full of it. I don't understand what's going on here. Somebody explain that to me. But I don't know. You know, maybe with all the crap that Volkswagen's been going through, they'll make some major changes, and we'll see a kind of a new face out of them. One thing that I'm relieved about with a lot of automakers, but not all of them, is that they're still doing analog gauges. I know that it may seem sexier to just have the numbers, you know, like the all LCD screen, you know, this whole thing being an LCD, and you can reconfigure it like the way they do it on Teslas and some of the real kind of cutting edge cars. For me, I find those a real distraction. It's faster, for me at least, to simply look at the position of a needle on the gauge than it is to read a number. You know, once you get used to driving a car, you know that when the needle is at a certain point, you're going a certain speed, and you don't need to read the number at where the needle is. You know, so like in this car, if I was used to driving it, and I'm in an Acura right now, by the way, if the needle's pointing straight up, I know I'm doing 80. From that point on, I don't need to look at the number to know I'm doing 80. I can just casually glance at the needle and go, oh, I'm doing that speed. And the other thing is, when you've got the actual speed in digits showing on the display, you're never doing that exact speed, right? If you want to do 60, you're never always going 60, you're going 59, 60, 61, 60, you're kind of fluctuating around in there. Those numbers are always going to be flashing these different values as you're driving, whereas a needle, you can't really notice that difference. It's not very obvious, it's not annoying, it's not distracting when they do it that way. So I really hope that these kind of gauges, even if they're simulated, you know, maybe the whole thing is an LCD, but even if they just simulate having needles instead of the number just being shown as digits, I think that makes for better usability and less distracted driving like that. This blue on this Acura is really nice, by the way. That's a really nice shade. And it's super metallic too. It's kind of hard to tell again on video, but just the right amount of metallic to it. Talk about super neon green. Look at this. This is actually more neon yellow. This is a giant G-Wagen. Look at this thing. This is incredible. This thing is just insane. You could take over the world with a vehicle like this. Them fender flares. 2 sets of shocks. Imagine seeing that in your rearview mirror. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So that's the auto show for this year. I hope you liked what you saw. I realized it was a little ranty at times, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm really passionate about cars. I've been driving for a long time. I got my driver's license on my birthday when I turned 16, if that says anything. Unlike a lot of younger people these days who are just waiting to get their license, if not saying I don't want to bother with it at all. I know what I want out of a car, and I think there are some things that are kind of universal standards, and it's really frustrating when automakers do what seem like dumb things to me. But overall, what I really want is the entire industry to improve and get better. Yes, I have my preferences for brands and country of origin and that sort of thing, but I'm not saying that I want some automakers to succeed and other ones to fail. I want them all to succeed, and I want them all to embrace new technology and just keep getting better. So in any event, if you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at thisdoesnotcomp, and as always, thanks for watching.